Revo Fitness are on board with True Footy, and to be honest with you, when I first heard $9.69 a week with no lock-in contract, I thought there had to be a catch, but there isn't.
Full gym, everything you need, free weights, pin and plate, cardio, functional training, and it's open 24/7. No dodgy fine print.
And if you spend just $3 more a week, you get unlimited Pilates, you get massage chairs, you get eVolt body scans. Dylan, you can finally put to use those new yoga pants you've been bragging so much about.
Clubs are already all over Australia, Jesse. So chances are there's one near you. Check it out at revofitness.com.au. That's revofitness.com.au.
Revo Fitness, genuinely good value, so go and make the most of it. G'day guys, welcome back to True Footy. Today, Dylan and I will be going through every club in the league and identifying what are their contract headaches and which players do they need to sign as a matter of priority to stay on their list going forward. Dylan, you're going to do the Adelaide Crows. We're going to work through the clubs alphabetically. Why don't you take us away with the Adelaide Footy Club? Who do you think is their highest priority re-signing?
They've got a few. I mean, they don't have like a massively big name player that they urgently need to sign, but I think they've got a few guys that are starting to get their way into the team, namely, and the one that I've kind of plucked out as the most, needs to be made a move on is Jordan Butts. I think, juicy Butts. A lot of that comes around the fact that other clubs want him a lot. I think he's a really wanted man at the moment. Key defenders are in short supply across the league. I think if you're Adelaide, as much as they can probably paper over the cracks a little bit with some other players that they've got, I can't believe I just said paper over the cracks. That is absolutely brilliant stuff.
That's quite the image.
I think we should leave this in.
Yeah.
I think we actually should leave this in.
Subscribe for more serious football content.
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. I think with key defenders and the shortage of them, Adelaide have to try to hang on to this guy. And I think he's kind of shown this season that he might even be an upgrade on someone like a Nick Murray.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously they've had some injury issues there with Keane this year. And he was a wanted man last year. I think the Bulldogs and North came looking for him, as you said, and I think that will continue this year. So as a free agent, I think that's a good priority for them. I'll go to the Brisbane Lions, Dylan. I think the most talked about one is Zach Bailey, and that's probably right at the top of the list. I don't know how realistic it is he stays now, but naturally being the playmaker that he is, Brisbane need to prioritise that. I will also point out that in 2027, clubs will be looking at the players coming out of contract then. And I would say they'd be having a close look at the contracts of Logan Morris and Kyle Lohman, both of whom are out of contract next year and players they want to re-sign.
Do you think that a player like Zach Bailey, just going back to him, the front end of that, do you think he should stay as far as, like, from a loyalty perspective, the fact that he's won 2 premierships with the Brisbane Lions and he's been through this entire rebuild with them, shot up the top of the ladder, he's a major part of that. Do you think that kind of leaves anything with him that he's kind of obligated to sort of stay with this team and try to go for more premierships? Or do you think he's got to look after himself in this situation?
I think he sort of has the chance to go for the best of both worlds. And, if he goes to an Adelaide Crows, there's absolutely every chance he wins another premiership. Like, he's not going to a cellar dweller by any means if he goes there. I don't know. We've seen other players win a couple of premierships and leave. We saw Archie and Starcevic do that last year.
Different level of player, though.
Absolutely. But he can get his bag, presumably a big pay rise, and have also been a dual premiership player. So I don't think he necessarily feels obliged to stay. I don't think that will be the way it plays out personally. What about Carlton, Dylan?
Not a lot there that they really have to pressingly sign. I think that tells you where their list is at a little bit as well, because I think there's a lot of guys and you go, yeah, he might be a player for them, he might be a player for them, but they're probably going to be looking to turn things over a little bit anyway. I think move some players on, get some new ones in, et cetera, et cetera. I think Ollie Hollands is probably the biggest name that's pressing for them at the moment, but they could, would they be absolutely desperate to keep him? I'm not 100% sure. Wiedering and Cripps are probably the big ones coming up, and not from a re-signing point of view, but just like what happens with them. Cripps' contract in 2027 runs out. He could be looking to go back to Western Australia. We don't really know. And Wiedering, do they want to hold on, or do you think that they actually want to get the trade capital for him?
That's a tough one. I think it's easy to make the case hold on to Cripps because you're not going to get a massive return for him. Whereas a Wiedering, that's a tricky one whether he genuinely holds some value. So as you say, it's not really a case of re-signing him. It's just a case of what do we do? And I suppose the good thing is they don't have players that they're desperate to keep that might be out the door. But they're going to be re-imaging their list big time, I think.
Sure.
Let's talk about Collingwood. Now, there's a couple that come to mind here. Bo McCreary has been talked about as a target for Tasmania, coming out of contract in 2027. I reckon that will play out for a period of time. I'd imagine there's going to be a lucrative offer to go to Tasmania, but a player that they should ideally like to keep given the list position and, he's still relatively young. So that would be a blow if he left. And you also tie Nick Dacos into that conversation. Now, he's contracted to 2029, but I'm sure if there's enough noise, he could end up at Tasmania with a big trade. I'm not sure if I predict that. Do you really see Nick Dacos leaving Collingwood?
I don't.
I don't.
I remember we had Cartoumi on the show. I remember, and he was kind of talking about it. And I don't know. I just don't see a world where Collingwood, he'll be the player that they prioritise more than anybody else. They can't let him leave. That's where a player like Beau McCreery ends up leaving because they put so much into a player like Nick Dacos. I was going to ask you, where do you think McCreery, who's a bigger chance of leaving in my opinion, where does he sit? I think after Nick Dacos, there's an argument that he's probably their most talented player in that younger group.
Oh, in the younger group maybe.
Yeah. Not older guys.
Yeah, I was going to say because you start to get into some really good players still in the back end of their career. But in terms of like the under 26s, which I think he must turn 25 this year, I reckon Beau McCreery, he'd be right up there in terms of like priority.
Yeah,
absolutely to keep. So an important one for them to re-sign. Talk to me about Essendon.
It's just Zach Merritt, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
At this point, which isn't this year. 2027, his contract runs out?
It is 2027.
It is 2027, but
one more.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily about him re-sign. I mean, he's gone, isn't he? Let's be real.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Have you heard him speaking in the media in the last couple of weeks? Very much leaving it open. I think he said...
Oh, yes, I did say that.
Yeah. There was a radio interview where he sort of said, like, I refuse to say that I'm absolutely staying because of what happened last year. I think there's a big chance that he's out the door. Them finishing on the bottom of the ladder would be just a knife in the back just to kind of end the whole saga, I think, which it's just been kind of... It's been a bit sad.
Yeah, it's been plaguing them. Obviously, a lot of discourse around Essendon's senior players or lack of leadership at the footy club, but you do feel it might be trending that way, absolutely. When we talk about Fremantle, well, things are going well on field. They're also going well in terms of their contract situation, Dylan. Their list management has been rock solid for a number of years, and a lot of their best players are signed up to lengthy contracts. They've also got to keep playing well, but at the moment, if you look at the out of contracts this year, I'd say Isaiah Dudley and Sam Switkowski present as players that are important. Switkowski, I think, will be a free agent in particular as well. Their retention is rock solid these days, but you'd want to keep those guys. I'd also just throw in Alex Pearce is out of contract end of next year. I reckon watch him become the inaugural Tasmania captain, sorry.
Yeah, it's a good call. I was actually just thinking about a player like Dudley. What would he be on money-wise? I know you've got no... objective idea of what that would be, but like
I don't think he's signed an extension since he's been there. This is only his second year, so he's probably on like the base.
Did he come in as a rookie?
Yeah, I reckon SSP. So maybe he actually has signed one extension. But if he did, then it was only for 1 year.
Yeah.
So maybe he got a 1 year. I'm not sure. I'm going to make myself.
They've had a couple of guys over the journey, like a Lockie Schultz, who I remember watching him in an interview once he got to Collingwood and talking about how he didn't think that he sort of came in on a low contract. He started to perform at a higher level and he didn't feel like he was rewarded with that higher contract. It's obviously tough at a club like Freo where they've got so many players improving really quickly.
Yeah.
Makes it difficult and adds that crunch.
Absolutely. Talk to me about Geelong.
The Catters, again, they're another one they've got control of things pretty well. They're always really good in the list management space, but I think Sam de Koning is probably the biggest one, 2027. So comes out of contract when Tassie's there. And I think he'd be one that the Devils would throw a lot of money at. Potentially. Yeah,
absolutely. You got to be wary of the guys coming out of contract next year in particular with Tasmania on the horizon. You think Sam de Koning would be someone they look at. Thankfully for the Geelong Cats, their retention is also outstanding, but never say never if there's a lot of money.
How much do you think the Cats would want to keep someone like a Sam de Koning? I think his first year for a key position player of about 200 centimetres was probably as good as you could possibly get. He dropped off a little bit after that.
He did. I think there's still a lot of potential there. Given that it'll be a free agency signing, you'd think that this band one is like a pick after their first. They'd be fighting to keep him, I reckon. It's not as though
so you're looking pick 20-ish.
Yeah, there's no blessing there because I don't know if maybe they can match and force a trade under the same rules. It's a bit complicated, but I think they'd want to keep de Koning as well for their general list profile.
Yeah.
Talented key position player. Gold Coast. I reckon there's a bit going on here. So we know Ben King... Recently, it's been reported he's likely to sign a 2-year extension. So maybe we park him for now.
Yep.
I think the next one this year is probably Jed Walter, obviously a top 3 pick from 2023, garnering a lot of interest. I think he's coming off a back-to-back 3-goal hauls. In terms of, this year, that he'd be the one. But then if you look 1 year into the future, they got the double whammy, Rowell and Anderson, both free agents in the Tasmania year. I can't see them both leaving.
I was going to say, I feel like they've done so much to build this club off the ground that they're fairly safe. I mean, there's a loyalty aspect of that I just don't think they're going to walk out the door on them. Jed Walter's a completely different story, though.
Yeah, I think Walter staying makes it tougher to retain Rowell and Anderson just from a financial point of view. I reckon Walter might be the one to go.
Because the clubs, I mean, I look at Carlton. They would be offering so much money to get someone like a Jed Walter in the door, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
He could potentially, along with, Walker and Smith and Dean and these kind of guys, he could be the next breed of Carlton player that sort of pushes them back up the ladder. So
Collingwood equally would be looking for a player like that.
Absolutely. Collingwood would be a big one as well. So I think I even wonder sometimes with the selection of these players, like you go back to the start of the season, they were kind of making him work for it. He's kind of in the team now a little more consistently. I wonder how much that's to do with wanting to retain him.
Yeah, or even just driving the value up. Who knows? I'm not sure if Hardwick is thinking in that space at the moment.
No, I mean, they're trying to win games ultimately, but and they've obviously, I think Jamara's out at the moment, which opens up a place for him. But Reed's out of the team now over Walter, and it was the other way earlier.
True. Talk to me about the other expansion club, the Giants. There's a bit going on as well?
They have got a bit going on. So we talked about last week in our trade video, Jesse Hogan and the clubs that potentially could have a look at him. It sort of looks like the Giants aren't all that keen on keeping Jesse Hogan. I think they might be trying. They're obviously in a transition place now with their list at the moment. They're playing pretty inconsistent football, but I feel like they're trying to rebuild this list on the run a little bit. Yeah. I think not bottom out too much, keep it a desirable place to want to go, but also they aren't. I don't think they've got finals in their sights necessarily this season. The big ones I think for me are Nick Madden and Max Grushevsky.
Yeah. They'll get some interest. I think, sorry to cut across, but I think Richmond's after Nick Madden, and I believe there is a bit of a north link to Grushevsky as well. And both those guys have shown a lot. I mean, they're young players, they're key position and ruck players that have taken a long time to develop. They're the ones that you really don't want to go when you've spent 3, 4, 5 years developing them. Absolutely.
And then as soon as they get good, they're gone.
Yeah. Exactly. What about 2027? There's a couple of free agents for the Giants.
Lockie Ash and Tom Green, obviously both out of contract there, which is going to be dangerous, particularly Tom Green, I think, for Tasmania. That's a big one. That is a big one. I mean, I think there's a debatable whether Tom Green, the archetype that he is as a player, like how important he is in the modern game, but I think as a leader and again, they're kind of, I suppose their ascension as a team in the last few years has kind of been on the back of a player like Tom Green. He's kind of the new brigade of player at the Giants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we get back into it, I've just got to give a shout out to Revo Fitness because $9.69 a week for a gym membership is absolutely ridiculous. And I think more people need to know about this.
No locking contracts, no hidden fees, just rock up and train. Free weights, cardio, functional training. It's 24/7, so you have no excuse not to go. And this is great timing for me because I am starting to develop a little bit of a dad bod, Dylan.
Don't be ridiculous, Jesse. You look incredible. Also, for an extra $3 a week, you get unlimited Reformer Pilates, massage chairs, and eVolt body scans.
They got clubs all over the country, so there's likely one near you. Just jump onto revofitness.com.au. That's revofitness.com.au, or head into your nearest club to sign up. Let's get back to the show.
We'll move to the Hawks. Not a lot going on this year in terms of big names, and we know Mitch Lewis has been linked to a move away. I don't think talks have really started there. I don't know if I can seriously sit here and say Hawthorn are going to make him a priority. I don't think it's that cut and dry yet, but a quality player that's out of contract. Jack Gunston's also out of contract, no chance of leaving. Cam McKenzie also pretty unlikely to leave, and Bodie Ryan out of contract, but a player that looks pretty good. So it's pretty low-key this year. However, next year, Tasmania, 2027, Jack Ginnivan and Will Day. Now, I don't think either are likely to leave, but those are pretty handy players out of contract when Tasmania come in, so I think they'll be having a look at those contracts already. Maybe Will Day probably wants to sign after he's played a little bit of footy. His value would be diminished right now. So I wouldn't expect that to change anytime soon. But
I even wonder with a team like a brand new team into the AFL that are going to have a lot of new staff, different people coming in to kind of put all your hopes on someone like a Will Day is a bit of a weird player to go after.
Absolutely. But at the same time, he'd be a pretty marquee signing. So
Oh, it'd be huge. Yeah.
And Ginnivan probably unlikely to leave, but still, those are quality players out of contract. They want to sign those guys up.
Ginnivan, I mean, for someone like Ginnivan, I think he'd be just looking at the numbers that would be offered up to him that he wouldn't necessarily get at a team like Hawthorn. I actually think Cam McKenzie's an interesting one there for 2026. Who do you think would go after a player like that? Could see someone like the Saints.
Yeah, maybe the Saints. He was a Saints NGO originally. I mean, I also go back to Carlton, Collingwood, teams that are trying to re-image their list a little bit. A quality young player.
Collingwood for sure, I reckon.
Yeah, I think he suits them. Could you make a case of Essendon and Richmond? I think they've sort of rebuilt their midfields, not to an extent where they're fine, but I don't know if Cam McKenzie is a high priority, whereas I think he suits Collingwood or Carlton more.
Those teams have both drafted highly talented players. You almost feel like if they're bringing someone into their midfield mix, it's less of a talent pick like that, and it's more of a ready-made, experienced guy to just help them blossom.
Absolutely. So yeah, he is an interesting one to watch there. Talk to me about Melbourne. I think they've got a few. They
do have a few coming up this year. I think the biggest priority would be Tom Sparrow.
Yeah.
I know like a lot of Melbourne fans are frustrated with him because he's been a bit of a vanilla sort of nothing player, I feel, up until this point, and he's really, really doing well under the new coach, under Stephen King. I think he's playing the best football that he's ever played in his career.
And a little bit more responsibility with Petrarca and Oliver gone.
Exactly. There's just holes in that midfield, so he's gone in there and played really well. You'd be disappointed to lose a player like Tom Sparrow the year that he got good.
Yeah, absolutely. What about 2027? They have a free agent.
The big one's Trent Rivers, a guy that's, I want to say that he sort of broke out 18 months ago under the Simon Goodwin. You know, he got some midfield time, had a really good season there or a back end of the season, and then he just kind of never got the opportunity. Under Stephen King, he's even been dropped this season. So it's kind of hard to know where he's at as a footballer, but I reckon there'd be a lot of clubs with the front half game that he has, like the goal kicking ability and the possibility that he could play midfield, I think, with the speed that he has. A lot of clubs would be after him.
Absolutely. He has been linked to being chased by the West Australian clubs, so that's a wait and see, but I think you summed that up well. Dylan, I've got your North Melbourne, and I would say the best out-of-contract player they have this year that needs to be a priority is George Wardlaw. Now, I get the impression Wardlaw is pretty blue and white-blooded, to use a phrase that makes some sense.
Good one.
You know, I think given his body, he probably has personally wanted to wait until he's played a body of work to re-sign that contract. I don't think it's a big risk, but still a high priority signing. And Finn O'Sullivan next year. So there was a bit of a loose Tasmania rumour that they're going after Lawler and Foss.
And Foss, yeah.
So I'm not sure how successful they'll be, but let's just put it on the radar that Foss will be out of contract at the end of next year as well.
I reckon as a North Melbourne fan, this is probably it sounds strange because it's not like we're pulling up trees as a football club, but I feel like this is the most content that I've ever seen the club from a player's wanting to stay perspective.
Sure.
I feel like we've always got that, like being a smaller Melbourne club, we've always got the possibility that a big club's going to come and take those guys away. I don't feel like anyone wants to leave. Now, that doesn't mean they won't because there's always money involved, and if they get offered big contracts, it's possible. But none of those guys are going to leave because they don't like the club.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They've turned a corner from that point of view, and it's all about the future for this point. Port Adelaide, Dylan.
Port Adelaide. So, I mean, obviously Butters, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about him. He's gone though, isn't he?
Yeah.
So the other one would be Jordan Sweet.
Jordan Sweet this year.
Yeah. I think when you look at him coming over from the Western Bulldogs, he was a player that didn't really get a go there. Comes across to Port Adelaide. They made him work for it, didn't they? There was still that sort of conversation like, is it Soldo?
Yeah.
Is it Jordan Sweet? They kind of like weren't sure who they were going to pick there. They've gone with Sweet, and now he's become a priority. So I think at this point, you want to make sure you hold on to that guy. He's one of their better players this season.
Absolutely. I will throw in a bunch of big names out of contract next year for Port Adelaide. Mitch Georgiades has been linked to a move home to Western Australia. Miles Bergman is also out of contract. I think he has a 2 plus like 8 or plus 7 contract, you know, one of those weird new age ones. But nonetheless, still technically out of contract next year and a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got Joe Berry coming out of his rookie contract, and he's starting to put together some really nice footy. He is a real priority for him. I think out of the three, like, I feel like Georgiades is likely gone. Bergman maybe as well, but Berry is like being a young talent. I think he'd be pretty close to the top there.
Who do you think is the biggest loss there? And I want you to factor in possible compensation as well.
Are we including Butters and Georgiades?
Forget Butters. Forget Butters and assume that he's gone.
Okay.
Georgiades, Sweet, Bergman, Berry.
Georgiades is the best player there.
But you'll get compensated.
Yeah, so it'd be free agent. Same with Bergman. If they force a trade with West Coast, which is possible, likely to get a good pick back. So the best payoff there, the one they'd probably want to keep. Oh dear, that's tough because they're all pretty good.
I feel like the one that they'd get the least back for would be Berry.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And probably of the age profile they're probably looking at, albeit Georgiades and Bergman would still be important to their list transition. So it's a bit of a muchness. I do think Berry will be a really important retention though. Yep. You're right though. He doesn't have the same potential payoff of if they lost him.
That's right. Yeah.
I've got the Richmond Footy Club, Dylan. So this year, a little bit more low key. I think Morris Rioli, Steely Green are the younger guys out of contract that will likely get a little bit of interest, but Steely and Morris, they're both getting opportunity. I don't think they're likely to leave, but still, you'd rather keep them. I know Steely Green has had some interest. Tom Lynch and Nick Vlostrian are also out of contract. Vlostrian, you'd probably say to some degree a priority, but like who's really going to take him from them?
Unlikely, I'd have thought.
So let's move to 2027, where a lot of their 2024 draft crop will come out of contract. I think it's time to start looking at those. You got Lawler, Houghton and Fall in particular. Sam Banks as well comes out of contract when Tasmania enter the competition as a Tasmanian. A little bit to think about there, but I think it will really be about retaining those top players from 24.
I think that this is where it becomes a benefit for Richmond that they drafted a lot of these guys together. Yeah. And they look for guys that played a lot of football together and got on really well with each other. So you look at Lawler, Houghton and Fall there that all came out of that 2024 draft. I think you've got a situation there now where you can go like, are any of those guys really going to leave and kind of leave the others that they've actually been drafted to the football club? It's kind of like they've created an environment drafting in clumps like that where it's sort of like we're all in this together.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I think they'll be okay with their retention other than a few Tasmanian talents. What about St Kilda, Dylan?
The Saints. So, I mean, the big one for me here is Darcy Wilson. We've talked about him a bit over the last couple of weeks. They got the Philippou signing done, and it feels like a little bit at the expense of someone like a Darcy Wilson. So clubs sniffing around him. The Kangaroos are big on him, and he's actually got a connection to the club there as well. So I think he's a big chance to leave, Darcy Wilson. Really? I think the Saints really need to get this done.
Absolutely. I think it's hard to see from the outside looking in. Obviously, it makes sense for him to make the Saints sweat a little bit to maximise that contract, but he will get good offers. We also know Naz will be out of contract at the end of next year. Probably not a chance to go to Tasmania, but he won't be a free agent, but still out of contract and a player that...
Potentially back to SA, right?
Yeah, his contract is an extremely high priority for them, no doubt.
Sure.
Sydney. In terms of this year, a player that's been linked to leave is Joel Amati. Again, I don't know how critical he is to the situation there, but probably one of the first names that comes to mind when you look at that out of contract list. But I'd probably push a year ahead and look at Chad Warner in 2027. Being a free agent, he's openly admitted to umming and ahhing about staying in Sydney. He wants to. The pull of home is quite strong. And I reckon he'll make that, well, he even said he'd make that decision again in 2027. So I think the writing's on the wall a little bit. There's a chance he leaves, but it's no lock. I think this would be a high priority signing.
How much do you think it comes down to what Sydney do this year?
Well, the rumour was in 24 that had they won the flag, he would have just left then. So it's almost as though if they win the flag, he'd be more motivated to leave. I think he wants to taste success with that group. I don't know if it's as simple as that. I think you've also got to consider what's West Coast doing. You know, are they attractive enough? The reason I say West Coast there is I think Fremantle are going to have so many quality players that they have to pay. I'd imagine West Coast would outbid for a Chad Warner.
Absolutely.
So I think he's a good chance to leave, but Sydney would much rather keep him.
Is he one of those ones that's like, I'll play for one and not the other, if the WA clubs, or
not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
No, I think it'd be money would be part of the motivation. I think if Fremantle undercut it slightly, and like he could play for them for slightly less, he probably would, given how much better Fremantle are than West Coast. Yep. But if there's a bigger gap there, I reckon, who knows.
Interesting.
Either way, I'm not ruling out the Swans keeping him for sure. I think he's still, pretty torn, but I think it might happen. Speaking of the West Coast Eagles, Dylan.
A smorgasbord of highly talented players
really
on the trade table here. We've got So I would say, looking at it now, I don't think you would have said this in past seasons, but Bailey Williams is probably the biggest priority signing for West Coast. He's having a really good season this year. I think the new ruck rules suit him. How big of a blow would it be if you didn't get to keep Bailey Williams now?
Well, we are so used to having a shit ruck that I think we just return to normality and be like, oh, it's not that much different. However, we, in the last month or so, we've seen Bailey play really well, and we have, as a team, played really well, particularly in the last 3 weeks by our standards. So it would be really deflating to lose a Bailey Williams, who is still really young for ruck. I think he's 25, when the rule seemed to suit him and he's become an important player. I think he would be a devastating loss. There's also Elijah Hewitt, who is out of contract. And
that would hurt you, wouldn't it?
Emotionally, yeah. And on the team. I think you don't want to lose a talent of that caliber. I think, outside of these guys, the question is, how are we going to keep Willem Dersma, Harley Reid? They're not immediately out of contract. I think those guys are bigger fish than Elijah Hewitt for sure. But in terms of the more immediate ones, I think those are the two I'm sweating.
It comes back to that Joe Berry conversation though, right? Because it's like, if Willem Dersma wants to leave or Harley Reid wants to leave, it's big. You don't want it to happen, but it's big capital at least. Yeah. Elijah Hewitt will almost walk out the door for nothing at this point.
Yeah, that's true. So that would be really deflating because he does have a lot of talent, even if he hasn't put it together quite yet. I'll finish this off with the Western Bulldogs, Dylan. Buku Kama's nearly left last year. He's out of contract still and enjoying a really improved season. I think he will be a priority signing in terms of this year. Also, in the last week or so, emerged a bit of a rumour, a bit of noise that Artie Jones is being courted by a few clubs. West Coast was the only one named. He is West Australian, so a player that's just started to come good, or at least be more consistent, and to lose him would be a bit of a blow. In terms of next year, Cody Waitman is a free agent, but at this point in time, it's been so long since we've seen the best of Waitman. I'm not sure if he's going to be targeted to the same intensity as if if he was playing regular footy, but still a player they'd rather keep.
Even for himself, you'd think that he'd be just kind of wanting to just get back and play at this point. I think we spoke about someone earlier where we were thinking the same thing.
Will Day, I think it was.
Will Day, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Similar situation. So some big calls to make. Big calls.
Absolutely. Let us know in the comments, guys. Do you disagree with any of that? And we'll see you in the comment section. Cheers.